Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for our Community Budget Forum for San Diego County District 3. Before we get started, I want to hand it over briefly to the translator, Miss Lucy.
Hola, buenos días. Muchísimas gracias por venir al Centro de Presupuesto de la Comunidad. Le queremos dar la bienvenida. Le queremos dar las instrucciones también. Si desean escuchar la audición en el día de hoy en español, por favor, fíjense donde está el icono debajo de su pantalla, donde van a ver, elijan el lenguaje de su preferencia, inglés o español, y pueden poner en silencio el audio original. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much. So again, I'm Terra Lawson-Remer, your supervisor for the new coastal district, which took effect on January 15th of this year. And I am so proud to represent our county in a district that stretches from Carlsbad all the way south to Coronado. We go east to UC, Mira Mesa, and PQ. I'm just really happy to be with you all tonight. So let's take a moment to see who is in this meeting tonight. If you can drop your name, location, and any organizations that you represent into the chat. Don't be shy. Love it. I see folks here from Carlsbad, people here from San Diegans for gun violence. I see a good friend from Encinitas, Center on Policy Initiatives, San Diego Organizing Project. Got folks here from La Jolla, PQ, Coronado, some more friends from Encinitas. Great. Well, I just really want to welcome everyone to our budget forum. I am so excited to have you here because since I joined the board in January of 2021, the transparency and engagement with the community and ensuring that the work that we do at the county is really serving our community has been the #1 priority of not only myself, but of my colleagues. And so the budget that we are presenting tonight is really a budget that's been developed in response to and in light of our organizing, our engagement, persistent feedback, and advocacy from all the communities in which we live and serve. This budget really is about putting our values into action. It's focused squarely on addressing the issues that matter the most to us here in San Diego County. Housing affordability, safeguarding our coastlines and natural habitats and open spaces, homelessness and mental health services, public safety, climate change, and protecting our quality of life. Many people are not really aware of the vital role the county government plays in our region. So I'm going to give you just a quick overview of what's in this $7 billion budget. And we have quite a number of county staff on this call tonight available to answer questions and go into more details. The budget helps to reduce homelessness and expand mental health services. It tackles our affordable housing crisis with some innovative programs. It improves access to justice for all and protects public safety. It advances our work to end carbon and smog emissions in our region and protect our climate for future generations. And it strengthens our public health system. We have the San Diego County General Managers, known as Deputy Chief Administrative Officers, DCAOs for short, on our webinar tonight, and they are here to walk us through the details of this recommended budget. We have Ebony Shelton, the General Manager of the Finance and General Government Group, also known as our Chief Financial Officer. We have Holly Porter, the General Manager of the Public Safety Group. We have Nick Macchione, the Health and Human Services Agency Director. We have Sarah Agassi, the General Manager of the Land Use and Environment Group. And also Sheriff Anthony Ray is here with us tonight. The DCAOs are going to walk us through the budget, and then we will have time to answer all your questions. But don't save your questions for the end. As questions arise or come to your mind at any time, please drop questions into the chat. That's the purpose of this webinar. It's the purpose of being here tonight, is to be able to answer questions about the $7 billion budget, so that everyone can be informed and we have opportunity to get input from folks across our entire district as we move into budget deliberations. So county staff and my team as well are here to answer your questions. We are going to try to uplift and get to addressing as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. And then we will be discussing your opportunities to continue to engage in the budget process this year and moving forward in the future. Before I hand it off to our program, I want to take a moment to acknowledge our MC for this evening, our Master of Ceremonies, my Chief of Staff, Crystal Page, who will be troubleshooting, keeping us moving along, and making sure that questions do get answered, and that we are all able to engage together in this budget process. So with that, I will hand it over to Ebony Shelton, the General Manager of the Finance Group and our CFO.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Lawson-Remer. I just want to thank you first for your enthusiasm for community engagement. I am a San Diego native. I think some of you know that. And budget is near and dear to me. Have been working here with this county for a very long time. So I'm really excited to be here with you all and updating you on the budget here. This is our second annual community budget meeting. And as you heard the supervisor mention, I'm here with my colleagues, and we're hoping to share information with you, including highlights of the budget, but also then to answer any questions that you might have here on the budget. And if we can't answer your questions this evening, we'll be certain to follow up with you and answer those questions also. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of the budget overall, and then I'll hand it over to my colleagues, and they'll talk to you a little bit more in detail about what's going on in their respective groups and operational areas. So we can go to the next slide. In terms of our agenda for tonight, we'll talk a little bit about the budget process in and of itself, what the county does. A lot of folks that I know here within the region, they know I work for government. They don't know whether I work for the city or if I work for the county. And they also don't know what the county does when we do talk about it. So we'll talk about some of those distinguishments and where the money comes from in terms of resources that we use to support the budget. We'll go through at a high level and talk about what the budget looks like by group, what's happening with staffing, and then again, my colleagues will walk you through their respective budgets, and we'll talk at the end about next steps and how you can continue to stay involved with the budget. We do have a $7 billion budget with just under 20,000 staff, 19,839 to be precise. There's a slight decrease in this year's budget, just down about 1% or $80 million roughly, and that's mostly due to changes in spending levels associated with the COVID-19 response from the prior year, and we'll talk through that. We can go to the next slide. So to start out, let's just talk about the budget process in and of itself. It's a very, very dynamic budget process in terms of our environment. There are constantly inputs that we're taking in and taking into consideration. We adopt the budget and build the budget once a year, but it doesn't sit on a shelf. We're constantly taking input and feedback on external factors that are occurring and incorporating those into this living budget. The budget itself starts with strategy, and we have a strong strategy that our board has laid down for us in terms of our strategic framework and our outlook moving forward. We take that strategy and we develop what we call a 5-year financial forecast, where we look at the resources that we use and what we have available to help us implement that strategy. And that becomes the basis of our operational plan or our budget, which we operate on a 2-year cycle. Legally, the board can adopt the first year of the budget, but we do allow for the second year to be approved for planning purposes. So as you can see here from this slide, these are all the inputs that come into play as we're working through the budget process, whether it's department initiatives, board priorities, political influences, changes in funding levels that come to us from the state or from federal government, as well as all of the input that you all provide for us in terms of community input on service priorities, like what we're doing this evening. Next slide, please. At the foundation of this approach is the county's general management system. And this is the system that we use to really keep our organization moving forward and beating to one tune. We are a very large organization, as you heard me mention, a $7.15 billion budget, close to 20,000 staff. An organization of that size really needs to have a consistent framework in order to ensure that everyone's moving along and rowing in the same direction. And what we have here is a new general management system that was implemented to ensure that it is reflective of our board's new strategic framework. And you can see at the heart of this is community engagement, and that's what we're doing this evening. It prioritized that as a fundamental piece of our values, and you can see our values actually listed here in the outer rings. Moving on to the next slide, please. Bolstering that are the strategic initiatives that we've outlined to move forward with in terms of driving operations. So throughout our operational plan document, if you have an opportunity to look at that, you'll see that we've aligned our objectives for the upcoming fiscal year to these strategic initiatives. So everything that we're doing has been aligned to meet these initiatives. Next slide. This year is the first year also that we have implemented a budget equity assessment tool. This is a tool that has helped county departments to prioritize services and allocations with equity in mind. This framework is a framework that was developed to really help to ensure that in everything that we do and how the county conducts business and allocates resources, that we focus on these 4 areas in question. We apply an equity lens to department operations. We use data to help each specific department, and we look to strengthen community engagement. All of this, of course, with the hopes of ensuring accountability and strengthening equity. Next slide. So what do we do here at the county? What exactly do we do, and where do we get our resources? I like to talk about what we do in 3 broad categories. The first being that we act as an agent for the state, where the state has delegated authority for executing certain services, along with funding for those services, such as social services and health programs, examples that you see here on this slide. Next are services that the county here is locally responsible for, providing to the entire region. So that includes operating detention facilities, collecting taxes, conducting inspections, and so on, administering elections, etc. And finally, the last bucket of services that we have are municipal services that the county is responsible for providing to the unincorporated area of the county. So this is much like services that are provided to cities in incorporated areas. In the unincorporated area, the county is responsible for providing those same services like law enforcement and libraries, all the typical things that you see your local city providing to you. And the resources that come about to help us provide those services come in the form of what we refer to as program revenue. Program revenues are resources that we receive for specific services. So those may be funds that are allocated from the state or federal government to execute entitlement programs. And it's what we frequently refer to as other people's money. And those are dollars that come with strings attached. It makes up the majority of county resources. We do not have discretion, or the board does not have discretion to use those resources for a different purpose other than what they were allocated for. And again, that's what we refer to as program revenue. We also have general purpose revenues, and general purpose revenues fund the majority of the services that the county has a responsibility to provide. So those mostly go to regional activities such as law enforcement and general administration. General purpose revenues are heavily reliant on property tax revenues, and in fact, property taxes make up the bulk of that revenue source. And there are a few other sources that are included there, such as sales tax and vehicle license fees, and so on. But again, the majority of that, again, is property tax. And then the final category of funding sources that we have available to us are what we call use of fund balance, which refers to one-time resources that are available to be spent on one-time investments such as information technology investments. And these resources really help us to leverage ongoing resources to provide ongoing services versus using those ongoing resources to pay for those one-time enhancements. So it provides the organization a level of flexibility. It's important that we do not use those one-time resources to fund ongoing programs to ensure that we keep the budget structurally balanced and don't create long-term sustainability issues. Now we're going to move on to a couple of charts, and I hope you had a little snack. I know it's around dinner time for most of us, so this is what I call my French fry chart. This is a snapshot of the history of the budget by our operational group, and you have a few years of trend data. You can see here that the Health and Human Services Agency is the largest part of the county's budget at just under $2.8 billion, followed by the Public Safety Group, and so on. You can see the Land Use and Environment Group, SG3, our capital program, and Finance Other. I'll note that the Finance Other group is a group that's responsible for enterprise-wide costs such as debt service, funding for our capital program, and so on. So again, the overall budget here has decreased by roughly $82 million or 1.1%. Again, that decrease is really being driven by declines in spending in the prior year budget for COVID-19 response activities. We also have a smaller capital program moving forward in the CAO recommended budget that you see before you, which is also a factor contributing to that growth. While the Health and Human Services Agency is going down because of COVID-19 spending, if that spending was adjusted out of that base, there would actually be an increase, and you can see that in looking at 2021 to 2023. And we have similar situations in other groups where there's one-time spending that is going away, so it gives the appearance that there's a decrease. But across the organization, we're actually seeing additional investments, which is what you heard the supervisor mention during her intro, and you're going to hear more about that from my colleagues today. So moving on to staffing levels. So you heard me mention that we're just under 20,000 staff, 19,839 FTEs. This is a growth of 5.6% or just over 1,000 FTEs. So significant growth that we're expecting to help us moving forward with implementing these objectives and goals that we've got laid out. The majority of this 1,057 staff increase is actually occurring within the Health and Human Services Agency. In fact, over half of it is occurring there. The Health and Human Services Agency is increasing by 595 FTEs. In the Public Safety Group, we also see staffing increases of 173 FTEs, or just about 2%. The majority of that is being driven by investments in the Public Defender's Office, but also other areas. And other notable changes we have are in the Land Use and Environment Group, where we see staffing increases of 171 FTEs, with the majority of that increase concentrated in 3 departments, but actually occurring across the entire group. Those 3 departments are Public Works, Planning and Development Services, and Parks, and you'll hear more about that later. Also, significant resources being addressed here and invested in our Land Use and Environment Group to ensure that we're able to come out and reach all of you through community engagement and outreach using data analytics and so on. And finally, in the Finance and General Government Group, my group, we do have additional resources coming online, staff resources of just about 118 FTEs or 6.5%. Really excited to announce that we have our new Office of Economic Development and Government Affairs being formed, which will help to focus community investments, but also investing in the Arts and Culture Commission and specifically adding staff resources to help in that area. We also have a number of resources being added to support translation services, to add transparency by creating a new Public Records Act request unit to be responsive to those activities. And we're also investing in community engagement and digital services to help the enterprise with reaching all of you. On the next slide, this is a highlight of the county's capital budget. The program for fiscal year 22-23 includes 14 projects that have been approved by the FINA that went forward to the board in March. We also have listed here an additional 6 projects that were approved in May, and 1 project that is also a major maintenance capital outlay fund project, but a significant project in terms of investment. You can see here that we've categorized all these projects based on the strategic initiatives here. So with that as an introduction to the county's budget, I'd now like to introduce you to Holly Porter, who will walk you through the public safety budget.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you this evening and to explain a little bit about what we do in public safety and our budget for the upcoming year. So San Diego County continues to be one of the safest in the nation. And as part of a regional coalition of public safety and criminal justice partners, the Public Safety Group supports criminal justice, disaster planning and response, and numerous peace officer functions related to activities in San Diego County. The 9 public safety departments in the Public Safety Group regularly coordinate with regional partners and seek community input to deliver high-quality programs and services. Public Safety Group departments collectively support the county's strategic initiatives to advance the county's vision of a just, sustainable, and resilient future for all. There are 3 themes in the proposed budget for the Public Safety Group that I will highlight for you this evening, including specific fiscal investments that will support efforts across multiple departments to advance our mission that you see there on the screen. Those themes are justice system reform, investing in our jails, and additional resources for fire and emergency services. So let's start with justice system reform. Today, there are 3,985 people in county jail. That's a number that is historically low for San Diego County. Justice system reform continues to be a high priority and a key area of collaboration and focus in the coming year. And we're intending to advance equity through this alternative to incarceration focus. It's designed to maintain public safety while addressing the root causes of criminal behavior. A diverse work group of community, county, and justice stakeholders are evaluating data and best practices to keep the public safe while directing people who commit low-level, nonviolent misdemeanors away from jails when there's not a risk to public safety. The goal for this initiative is to reduce justice involvement, incarceration, and recidivism. We're working with the Health and Human Services Agency and will continue partnering to evaluate the use of mobile crisis response teams in lieu of law enforcement response for individuals who do not pose a danger to themselves or others, and law enforcement drop-offs to crisis stabilization units. Ultimately, we hope these services, along with sobering centers, will represent robust alternatives to custody for people who have substance use and mental illness and who do not pose a risk to public safety. The goal is to provide connections to care over custody for low-level nonviolent offenders. The Public Safety Group recently convened a group of key stakeholders to develop options for community-based gun violence reduction and disruption programs. This initiative seeks to reduce the impact of gun violence across the county, especially within communities that are most disproportionately impacted. Next year, based on the recommendations of stakeholders, we'll lead a regional gun violence community needs assessment to define the scope and complexity of the problem in San Diego County and to develop meaningful prevention, intervention, and aftercare strategies. The operational plan change letter will include $300,000 to engage in this initial exploratory work. In the proposed budget for the Public Safety Group Department and Health and Human Services Agency, there's nearly $180 million dedicated to programs that support diversion from jail and mental health interventions that represent alternatives to incarceration. $180 million is a very significant investment by the County of San Diego to provide services and support to people addressing housing, educational, mental health, and substance use issues that often contribute to a person's criminal behavior. Part of the $180 million supports 15 additional staff and $16 million in probation to fund a new pretrial services unit. This new program will provide needed connections to care and services in the community for individuals who have been charged with a crime and are awaiting their court appearance. Through this program, we hope more people can be monitored in the community rather than in custody until their day in court. The proposed budget also includes $400,000 for the district attorney's innovative countywide diversion program for transitional aged youth accused of misdemeanor and felony crimes. It's expected approximately 500 youth ages 18 to 24 will be eligible to participate in this diversion program, which will be based in restorative justice principles, and other practices focused on addressing the underlying cause of unsafe behaviors. Next slide. The Sheriff's Department will remain focused in the coming budget year on advancing mental and physical health care in our jails. The investment in jail health care totals $131 million in the recommended budget, up from $123 million last fiscal year. The department is working to achieve national accreditation for our jail system health care by meeting 59 standards of care. To assist in this effort, the Sheriff's Department recently went from more than 20 contracts for delivery of medical care in the jails to one single contract. They expect to meet the accreditation standards within a year. Just as we've seen troubling increases in fentanyl and methamphetamine use in our community, the impacts of addiction are also unfortunately reflected in our jail system. Medication-assisted treatment for individuals in custody has begun and will be expanded in the coming fiscal year. The Sheriff's Department is already working towards and plans to meet the recommendations of the recent state audit, which includes improvements to mental health screenings at jail intake, follow-up medical and mental health care improvements, and safety checks in the jail setting, which are taking place now but will be enhanced. Recognizing that wildland fires are a persistent risk in San Diego County, we remain committed to investments in prevention, mitigation, response, and recovery. The San Diego County Fire Protection District Community Risk Reduction Division will work to better protect residents and homes from devastating wildfire by working with homeowners to achieve 90% voluntary compliance rate with defensible space standards on all parcels inspected. Fire expects to exceed 34,000 defensible space inspections next year. Emergency medical services and fire will work together to further develop a community paramedicine triage to alternative destinations program. This means that rather than transporting people experiencing a mental health crisis by ambulance to an emergency room, we may soon be able to transport to a crisis stabilization unit or to a sobering center if that's appropriate. The goal will be to get people to the right level of care at the right time without overburdening our emergency rooms. The Emergency Medical Services team will lead the regional implementation for training standards and program requirements for this new community paramedicine program. And finally, $16 million will be included in the CAO budget change letter to support a firefighting helicopter that will bring very valuable night flying capability to our local firefighting efforts. In total, the CAO recommended budget includes $2.4 billion for the 9 public safety group departments. This is a $173.7 million difference from last year, driven largely by salary and benefit increases, retirement contributions, the net addition of 173 staff, and increases due to strong projected receipts and sales tax revenues that support public safety functions. Public safety group departments are requesting 173 new positions, 90 of which are in the Public Defender's Office. This budget includes $5 million in the Public Defender's Office to support the Immigrant Legal Defense Program, providing legal representation to individuals in federal custody who would not otherwise have legal counsel. 90 new full-time employees in the Public Defender's Office will support and address many unfunded state mandates that require expert legal analysis and additional work by the Public Defender's Office. As a result of this significant increase in the Office of the Public Defender, many clients will see their sentences decrease and their convictions reduced. Attorneys will be added to collaborative court, the Public Defender's mental health unit, and Fresh Start, which helps people clear their records. The decrease you see reflected here on this slide for animal services is due to a one-time cost from last year to purchase a mobile clinic that we hope to see operational this year to provide animal services in historically underserved communities. The decrease in staff in County Fire is simply an administrative transfer of finance and admin positions to support a joint team that serves the Office of Emergency Services and County Fire. In summary and in closing, here are the significant budget changes in the Public Safety Group. The District Attorney is adding 11 staff to support trauma services in South County and their Transitional Age Youth Diversion Program. The Sheriff is adding 1 position to support medical operational management responsibilities, and resources will be added to support the comprehensive medical and mental health services contract with their vendor NavCare. 5 positions are requested to facilitate the implementation of body-worn cameras in all of the detention facilities and to manage the collection, storage, retrieval, and preparation of video evidence. The medical examiner is adding 6 positions to address their staggering 40% increase in workload over the past 5 years, particularly in the area of fentanyl overdoses. Probation is adding 15 staff for the pretrial services program and 9 staff to support the Youth Development Academy as part of our implementation of a new state law which transfers the responsibility for supervising certain youth offenders from the state to county probation departments. Probation anticipates about 12 youth will enter this program in the coming year, and they will be provided with rehabilitative services. The Public Defender is increasing by 90 positions, as I mentioned earlier, and San Diego County Fire is adding 5 positions for the community risk reduction programs and community paramedicine. The Roadside Vegetation Management Program will also expand the management of vegetation along 200 miles of key evacuation corridors in our community. We appreciate the opportunity to provide this update this evening, and I'm joined on this call by representatives from the Sheriff's Department, District Attorney, Public Defender, Probation, and County Fire. I'm proud to represent the 9 public safety departments in the County of San Diego and the nearly 8,000 professionals who work every day to keep our community safe and strive to achieve equity and justice. We all know that community input and engagement is vitally important, and we look forward to hearing your ideas and suggestions tonight. At this time, I'll turn the presentation over to my colleague, Nick Machione, to discuss the Health and Human Services Agency operational plan. Nick?
Thank you, Holly, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for spending your evening with us. I am Nick Machione, the Director for the Health and Human Service Agency, and I'm excited to give you a high-level overview of our agency's proposed budget. Now, the Health and Human Service Agency is an integrated agency with a very robust service network. Its many programs are designed to help all San Diego County residents live well. Our mission is to make people's lives healthier, safer, and self-sufficient by delivering essential services throughout the entire region. And we make this happen through the tremendous efforts of our 7,200 talented, diverse Health and Human Service Agency employees, along with our many volunteers and community partners. We've also now taken that one step forward in order to emphasize how our work we do helps ensure both our board and our county's vision of a just, sustainable, and resilient future for all. Now, reflecting on this past fiscal year, our agency has, in many respects, performed double duty, responding to the COVID-19 pandemic while also strengthening our community safety net. Let me share a few examples. We have strengthened our organization by adding departments to lead the work around our Board of Supervisors' priorities, including standing up a new Homeless Solutions and Equitable Communities Department, first ever, to lead the board's very innovative and results-oriented framework in ending homelessness, as well as helping our newcomers to our region. And on the topic of homelessness and housing, our agency's Housing and Community Development Services has led new affordable housing projects countywide with a very aggressive goal of achieving nearly 3,400 affordable housing units within the next 4 years that will help house over 35,000 San Diegans who are experiencing some of life's greatest challenges involving health disparities, poverty, and/or homelessness. Another new department is our medical care services. Its mission is to strengthen our Medicaid safety net and to ensure equitable access to a high-quality, sustainable medical care delivery system, including supporting our justice-involved population's access to health and recovery. This year, our public health services team conducted 400,000 disease case investigations and almost 130,000 related close contacts. And you won't be surprised to know that about 98% of those investigations and contacts were for COVID-19. While the global pandemic continues to cause significant challenges for individuals and families in our region, we remain grounded in our mission to provide comprehensive whole-person health, housing, and social services, and with an really expanded attention to behavioral health. This past year, in fact, we provided over 100,000 residents with mental health and/or alcohol and drug services. And to support San Diegans in meeting their basic needs, we continue to ensure over 1 million San Diegans are connected to safety net programs and benefits that provide food and nutrition, housing access, access to health care, employment training, and placement. And we've also provided over 2 million meals to older adults to help address food insecurity and social isolation. Now, the agency's recommended budget of nearly $2.8 billion includes in continued increases across service delivery areas and an increase of nearly 600 positions, 595 to be exact. Although the budget reflects a decrease of about $84 million, the decrease is driven by the removal of one-time COVID-19 costs, which masks the growth. If the adjustment for the pandemic response was removed, the budget would actually be increasing by a net of $158 million. Now I'm going to go over some of the highlights of these areas of investment next. Under behavioral health and public health service delivery, we have $95 million in increases. We're proposing 227 new positions supporting behavioral and public health service delivery, as well as enhanced clinical support. We're adding resources to continue to help address identified ongoing unmet behavioral health needs throughout our entire county. This includes additional treatment services, as well as expansion of long-term care capacity and the continued phased implementation of our mobile crisis response teams, which we call MCRTs, throughout the entire county. We will also be starting the first year of a school-based screening to care program, beginning with middle school students. And we continue to build upon prior year increases to public health services overall, with additional staffing support across several key areas, including maternal, child and family health service programs, HIV, hepatitis A, C, and STD programs, including important disease surveillance programs, among many others. Now, under homelessness and affordable housing, we have $52 million in increases. We are increasing our budget for continued efforts under the framework for ending homelessness, including areas such as implementation of the Coordinated Eviction Prevention Program, which will provide legal services and housing counseling and outreach and prevention services, and one-time stimulus funding for affordable housing developments. I'm also very excited to highlight $10 million in one-time county funds for partnerships with our cities to build service capacity in the region by acquiring shelters or locations to serve the homeless population within their cities. And we're proposing 30 new positions, including positions to administer and issue additional housing vouchers awarded through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, known as HUD. Now, for efforts to strengthen children and families, as well as our older adults, and to meet safety net demands, we're proposing increases of $54 million. We're proposing 321 new positions to increase access to essential safety net services, such as Medicaid, or what we call Medi-Cal in California, things like access to nutrition, which we call CalFresh, support safety net programs for many of our vulnerable seniors and dependent adults in our in-home support services program, as well as our adult protection services, and strengthening children and families through a focus on prevention and child welfare services. We're also increasing food and nutrition services and proposed increases in our CalWorks supportive service to align with increasing caseloads that we're seeing throughout our county. And the budget provides additional support for evidence-based child abuse prevention, mental health, and in-home parenting skill programs. In summary, our agency continues to make, through the board's direction, strong investments in addressing the priorities of our community. The agency is fully engaged in helping communities and our partners to thrive, not just today, but also by looking ahead and making plans for a sustainable future. Thank you. This concludes my presentation. Now I'd like to turn it over presentation to my colleague, Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for the Land Use and Environment Group, Sarah Agassi. Sarah?
Thanks, Nick. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you this evening. I am so pleased to share with you what is planned in this year's budget for us to continue protecting the health and safety of the community and preserving and enhancing the natural environment. We like to say that if you work, live, or recreate anywhere in San Diego County, we are a part of county government that you likely interact with every day. Some of our work spans across the entire region, serving residents and visitors with services such as food safety inspections, protecting consumers, and operating 156 parks and 33 libraries. This includes 18 parks in District 3, such as Del Dios Highlands and San Elijo, and libraries in Encinitas, Cardiff, Del Mar, Rancho Santa Fe, and Solana Beach. When it comes to land use decisions, stormwater management, or roads, our services are limited to the unincorporated area, which is home to more than 500,000 residents and larger than Rhode Island and Delaware combined. We evaluate our programs for equity and analyze services each year to ensure unique neighborhood needs are being addressed. Our total proposed budget is almost $619 million and includes more than 2,000 employees to serve our community. The county's commitment to sustainability is growing, recognizing the urgency of climate change and its impact to our community. We became the first county in the nation to create a regional decarbonization framework, which brings the community together to move the entire region to zero carbon emissions. Our updated climate action plan is based on current data and is being crafted in cooperation with community stakeholders to achieve meaningful long-term results. In the past 4 years, the county has invested more than $80 million into climate action measures that reduce greenhouse gases. In 2021, we reduced GHGs equal to removing 43,500 gas-powered vehicles from the roads for 1 year. We are greening every county department to reduce GHGs from county facilities, operations, and vehicles. Within our group, we are replacing 46 gas-powered vehicles with electric and hybrid models. We protect 44,000 acres of land, native plants, and habitat through the county's multiple species conservation plan areas and have preserved 3,000 acres of farmland. And we remain dedicated to preventing stormwater runoff, To date, the county has invested $200 million to stop pollution from entering more than 500,000 storm drains that lead to the ocean. Next year, we budgeted another $40 million for stormwater management. With $113 million in our recommended budget, we will advance an equitable, healthy climate and protect natural resources. More than half of our budget is invested to protect the health and safety of the community, provide infrastructure, and to improve the overall quality of life. This proposed budget will help us continue to improve housing affordability, educate and connect people at our parks and libraries, keep our roads safe and water taps flowing, and ensure healthy, locally grown produce. Looking forward, there is $60 million in the recommended budget to improve county roads, another $2 million to plant thousands of trees for natural cool zones in more neighborhoods, and $64 million to provide reliable water and sewer services in our communities. This proposed budget supports equitable involvement in county government, and these funds will help us continue to offer inclusive programming that inspires civic engagement, helps people who face hardship in life to refocus on their education, builds confidence among teenagers, teaches a new language, and discovers ways to improve internet access in unincorporated neighborhoods. Our $3 million budget increase shown for next year is actually closer to $53 million, or almost a 10% increase, since $50 million for luge projects is accounted for in another section of the county budget to support tree planting, sidewalks, bike lanes, and stormwater management. We are seeking 171 more staff to increase community engagement, support neighborhood parks and libraries, and complete our key projects. We're also bringing some contracted services in-house, which is anticipated to save $5 million over the next 5 years. We appreciate the opportunity to share what our group does and how we invest the public's money. We have group and department infographics that highlight our spending areas on our website, which are translatable into world languages. The URL is noted on the screen, and we will place it in the link. We'll place the link into the chat. Thank you very much for your time this evening, and I'll turn it back over to Ebony.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Holly, for sharing all of this rich information with our community that's spending their time with us this evening. I just want to thank you all again for spending your time with us tonight to learn more about the county's budget and process. We do have some information here for you on the screen on how you can continue to stay involved and engaged in activities as we move through the adoption process. We start out with our hearings officially on the 13th of June. We have a morning presentation, and for those of you who need to participate in the evening, we'll have another session on June 16th at 5:30. And we're scheduled to move forward with deliberations and adoptions on June 28th. There are multiple ways that you can get engaged through social media platforms, as well as providing comments on the budget in writing or in person. If you need assistance with translation services, those can be requested in advance, and we'd be happy to set those up for you. There's additional information available that's on our website. Please check out our budget portal. It's got a lot of rich information. If you're looking to learn more about the nuts and bolts of the budget, you can find that along with the budget document and a number of other helpful resources there. So again, I'd like to thank you all for your time this evening. Thank you for your questions, and I'll turn this evening over back to our supervisor to field the remaining questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much to the county team for all of your work. And I just want to, again, share how excited I am about so much of this work. We have, nearly 100 new positions to expand mental and behavioral health services. We have $40 million to tackle our stormwater crisis and try to prevent some of this toxic runoff from getting into our beaches and our coastlines. We have $10 million as a challenge to cities to step up and tackle homelessness together. We have our immigrant legal defense program, which is groundbreaking and just so exciting. 90 new public defenders to support staff workload. I mean, we've been through this. You've listened to it for nearly 45 minutes now, but there's just a lot in here. So I want to just congratulate again everyone who's on this call for all of your input and your advocacy. I think it's been heard. Certainly, I've been guided, day in and day out by the ideas and thoughts and priorities of a lot of the folks whose names I see on this call tonight, and a lot of other people who could not join us today. So it's just really been a partnership putting this budget together, and really a privilege to work with all of you on this call tonight to try to craft a budget that really reflects the priorities of our county. So with that, I know there are a lot of questions. I appreciate the work of my team and county staff answering those in the chat. But I want to turn the floor over to my Chief of Staff, Crystal Page, to facilitate any additional questions and answers for the last 10 minutes or so. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about how folks can get involved in continuing to serve our community, and some really great volunteer opportunities that we have coming up that I hope to see you at this summer. There's going to be a ton of fun stuff this summer. So thanks again, everyone. Over to Crystal.
Thank you, Supervisor. So we had a handful of questions I want to make sure that we uplift. Some were already answered in the Q&A. Chiwu, I noticed you had a question along the lines of what accounts for the public safety increase. I know that has been answered a bit, but we want to make sure that everyone hears that one. So Holly, not sure if that's you or who's the right person on the team, but we'd love to tie that question with how we're addressing jail deaths. So can we talk about, Holly, a bit like why the increase and what does that mean? How is the county addressing that piece?
Sure. So the Sheriff's Department budget for mental and physical health care at our jails is going from $123 million last year to $131 million this year, and that will really facilitate meeting those NCCHC, which is the National Commission on Correctional Health Care, 59 rigorous standards of excellence. And so they are working to achieve that and hope to achieve that within the next year. And I think we do have a Sheriff's Department representative with us if they want to sort of explain some of the additional actions that they're taking to also address the state audit recommendations. I don't know if someone, Sheriff Ray or someone else from Detention Services Bureau is on the line.
Hi, Holly.
Hi, Sheriff. So there was a question that came through about actions you're taking in detention.
Sure. Teresa, if you could speak to that, if you're on. If not, I'll gladly answer that question.
I'm here. Hello. Teresa Adams Haidar, Assistant Sheriff with DSB. Can you see me? I'm in my car,
Yes.
so I apologize. Yes, we actually are implementing pretty much all of the JLAC recommendations, things that we had really been doing for quite some time within our Detentions Bureau. We are onboarding our new medical contract, which takes about 30 small contracts, puts them into one big contract, which enables us to provide quality primary health care to our incarcerated population, which will be specific to the needs of that individual person who is in our facilities at that time. We are also really concentrating on our withdrawal program, which is the precursor to MAT, Medicated Assisted Treatment. And with that, we will start checking every individual who comes into our facilities for signs of withdrawal risk and start implementing a medication program protocol for that individual, tailored to that individual in our custody. So that is actually starting right now. And June 1st, we will have a more robust program with all of our arrestees in our facilities. We started with sheriff's arrestees, and June 1, we will do it with all arrestees in our facility. Additionally, we are looking at ways to provide naloxone for our incarcerated population, who will have access to it on their own. And if there are situations where an incarcerated person is in medical distress from an opiate, we are looking at ways where that medication will be accessible to the incarcerated population. And that's a new program. We're in our infancy, and that will have probably some more details in a few months, or maybe even shorter, probably a month, we're hoping to roll that out. We are also strengthening our mental health screening upon intake. So we are furiously trying to hire more mental health clinicians, and that's something that I think we're competing with many of the entities out there in county for our mental health practitioners. Every incarcerated person will be screened at intake for risk related to any suicide and the variety of mental health conditions that someone may present with at the time of booking. And that's probably just the first 3 or 4. We have a lot of other programs that we're working on currently, and I'm happy to discuss those at a later date with anyone who has questions to present them.
Thank you all so much. And I believe we also have Paul Parker on the line. Paul, is there anything you'd like to add to this section, given your role at the county?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. No, I think thus far we've had a very good collaborative relationship with Sheriff Ray and Assistant Sheriff Adams Haidar. Everything that she just mentioned, some of those things, we've also made those recommendations. I'm glad to hear they're moving forward with that, specifically the naloxone to inmates and whatnot. We've also made recommendations to the sheriff in reference to using health and technology to monitor the health and safety of inmates. I'd like to thank the Sheriff's Department for making sure that we have an MOU in place, which we do, that allows for me to go to any in-custody death. So the Sheriff's Department needs to be commended for that activity to make that happen. So at this point, the sheriff and I and our board will continue to kind of look at where we are as we move forward, strengthening what we can, because basically our whole role is to help the sheriff provide the best possible services and to prevent any in-custody deaths. So I think that's really all I have to say about that. So thank you all very much.
Awesome. Thank all of you for that answer. We're going to try to get in about 4 more questions before we wind down here. So the next one I'm going to go to, I think Jody Reddick submitted this one. Jody, not sure if you're still on, but Jody asks, how healthy is the Neighborhood Reinvestment Program and Community Enhancement Grant Program? Are they funded generously, more or less than the previous year? I'm not sure, Ebony, if that would be you or Caroline. I see her popping up on the screen. If you could start by reminding the rest of the community what those programs are.
Thanks, Crystal. Yes, I would be happy to take that. And so the Community Enhancement Program is
and Caroline, you sound a little far away. I think
Do I?
maybe take the headphones.
And now you get to see me really up close. Community Enhancement Program is a grant program that is funneled by Transient Occupancy Tax, which is based off of tourism, and the Board of Supervisors directs the spending of that grant program. And the Neighborhood Reinvestment Program is a program that is a general fund from the County of San Diego. It is also directed by the Board of Supervisors. Each of those is governed by a Board of Supervisors policy that indicates how those dollars are to be spent. I will say that community enhancement has seen an increase this year of about $550,000. We went from 4.8 million to just over 5.3 million. Which is a $1.1 million per district spending for each of the 5 supervisorial districts. And neighborhood reinvestment is static at $10 million, which is $2 million per district per the board policy that governs that spending. And so I would also just like to point out that while those 2 grant programs are wonderful, they're just 2 pieces of the entire puzzle. And so we do think for the portion that those serve, that those are great opportunities and great resources for our community.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Caroline. And Jody, I hope that answers your question. Cipriano is the lead in our office for those grants. If you go to Supervisor Terra Lawson-Remer.com and you hit on the programs button, I believe it is, resource button, it will tell you about all the different grants that are available as those are distributed. Thank you again, Caroline. Let's go to, from Aaron Debos, I believe is the name there. How much of the budget is allocated for parks and open space And I'm going to stop it there because it goes into a few other things. So Sarah, would that be your team?
Yes, hi, Crystal. Thanks so much. I will start, and certainly we have our team members from Parks and Recreation with us as well who can feel free to jump in and add to this. But our budget for our Parks and Recreation Department is $69 million in the proposed plan. And as we look at for purposes of MSCP and acquisitions, we have $7.5 million that's being proposed to put towards the purchase of properties. And then we also have another $4.5 million that we are putting towards and investing. We're recommending that we invest for purposes of habitat stewardship and monitoring. Because as we continue to build our great MSCP plans and acquire the lands, we're seeing that increased investment for the county as well, and ensuring that we are able to allow for habitat to flourish within the properties that we are acquiring. Anything that the Parks team would like to add on to that?
No, Sarah. This is Jason with Parks. That was spot on. Also, a robust capital improvement program. So many dollars, over $30 million, being allocated to support our capital improvement program, including the epicenter and District 3 as well. So appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you all. So we're going to do one last question here, and then I'm just going to remind folks, plenty of opportunity between now and June 28th, which is that budget deliberation we expect the supervisors to take to weigh in. I'll bring that screen up in just a moment. But here's our last question. I believe it goes to Nick and the team at HHSA. But what supports are we putting towards childcare? I'm going to stop it there because there's multiple questions in there, but this came from Jen Stewart, I believe, at Neighborhood House. So Nick, can your team address that question, please?
Yes, thank you, Crystal, and thank you for the question. We actually have our great lead on childcare through our First Five Commission, our Executive Director, Alethea Aguirrez. So I'll turn that to Alethea.
Sorry, I'm trying to get my camera to respond, but I'm here. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and excited to get a question. Wow, my heart started racing. Thank you for that. So in terms of our early care and education, we have been very fortunate enough over the last 15 years to be supporting quality early learning. And we have an initiative that's called Learn Well. And it's part of a bigger ecosystem called the San Diego Quality Preschool Initiative. And not sure how many of you are aware of this effort. And I believe Neighborhood House Association is also a participant in this. And so we provide coaching, we provide stipends, we provide professional development. And we're very excited about the board's recent activation of childcare ARPA funding, where we are slated to have later this summer a childcare conference with the board. And so there's more to come on workforce development, workforce retention, and really addressing the needs that we have here in our communities around childcare and retaining, a highly trained and qualified and well-compensated workforce. There was also on May 10th, a $1 million earmark that was approved to support childcare expansion funding for facilities. And this is going to be led by Mission-Driven Finance. And there is, what I understand, a real estate investment trust fund that's going to be created to support childcare expansion. And so we're talking about also the availability of childcare slots in our community. So very excited about those opportunities. And we encourage all of our childcare providers to please join us on a monthly basis for our COVID sector information calls, because that's an opportunity to come together as a community to also discuss what is impacting our childcare industry here in the county. And so thank you for that question, and thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts around that.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. So we're going to wind down here. I'm going to start by sharing my screen to remind you of all the opportunities coming up. First of all, I want to thank you all as constituents and stakeholders connected to the District 3 office for being here on a busy Monday night. We know it's a busy time of the year. But also this is the most questions we've ever had. So we are going to do our darndest to get back to you on every last one of them. If you do not get a response in 2 days, Joanna Santiago is the head of our constituent services. please connect with us. Our goal is to always get back to you within 48 hours, even if we're digging in. Hopefully you all can see my screen at this moment in time. Opportunities to participate. You're here tonight. You're awesome. Thank you so much. Between now and June 13th, you can submit an e-comment. You can contact the supervisor's office and let us know, what excites you about this budget, what concerns, what questions you have. That's what we're here for. I know that the wonderful county staff is doing the same. They've been working around the clock to make this budget come to life. So please use us all as a resource. June 13th at 9 a.m. As Ebony mentioned, there is that public hearing. It's a standard hearing. Come on out. You can testify, provide e-comments, things like that. Additionally, for our working folks who work that 9 to 5 schedule, 5:30 p.m. on June 16th, please join us. Then we expect around the 24th to see the Chief Administrative Officer and her released updated budget. That's kind of where you'll start to see the feedback of what folks have said, what the community has said, and then the board will deliberate and hopefully adopt on June 28th, with that budget taking effect July 1. So that is the timeline that we're on here. As a reminder, you all probably know this, our office thrives on being in the community. We try to go to about 100 community engagement events. That may be Kiwanis, that may be chambers, that may be all kinds of events in the district every month. Mark Leo, who you see in this photo with the sunglasses closest to the camera, is our lead on that. Our commitment this summer is to get out to farmers markets, to festivals, everything, to make sure you know that this county building is yours. And so if you'd like to volunteer and help us give out information, connect, share your ideas with us, we would love to have you. The email address for that is mark.leo@sdcounty.ca.gov. We're hoping to have a set of reliable volunteers that want to work with us. We've had such good luck with volunteers and their ideas and their leadership. So please join us if you can. And last but not least, just so you know, this is the supervisor's email address. That is our constituent services phone number. Anytime you need anything, please know that we are here to help you. Terra.Lawson-Remer@sdcounty.ca.gov. You can email us anytime. The team's always checking it, as does the supervisor. So we want to thank you all again for tonight. Thank you to the county staff and the CAO for the hard work that you all have done to make this possible. And most importantly, thank you to the community for pushing us, guiding us, providing feedback. We look forward to continuing to work with you all. Thank you. Have a great night, everyone. Take care.